for session 3, and then we put up here, let's just do a quick review. The first session was more is caught than taught. And so who can tell me something about a takeaway that you had from session 1?
You become a lot more conscientious of your behavior
Okay, why?
because you don't realize what your child's like. Hey, if this person has road rage, if my mom has road rage, I'm gonna have road rage
Okay,
too. You
okay.
notice them yelling at other drivers.
I like that. If you understand more is caught than taught, all of a sudden it makes you more aware of your actions and
Good.
what you're doing and who is watching. That's really good. Anybody else, a takeaway, more is caught than taught?
There's always something we can be working on.
Well, and I think that was the key. Remember the first time we talked about, like, what is something that you can work on that you, and even talk to your child about. And then the other one was, remember, it's not always bad stuff, right? What are some things that you're doing that you're modeling for good as well? So more is caught than taught is really important.
Mhm.
All right, then last time, some of you weren't here, so we'll do a little bit of a review on this one, but this was building a strong foundation. And remember, kids have stability and they feel safer and more secure, and they're more likely to obey and do what they're supposed to do if there's security. So what are some ways that we talked about so you can develop security in your home?
Stable relationships.
Okay, stable relationships. If your children see that you have stable relationships, then that's a lot easier for them. What are some stable relationships, or what are some relationships that we talked about?
If we're okay, they're okay.
Okay, okay, all right. So we're okay in what way?
We're not fighting, we're not arguing.
Who's we? Husband, wife. Okay, that was a big one. Husband-wife relationship, and that being solid. Kids are better if their parents are okay, they're okay, they feel more secure.
I know I missed last week too because of parent-teacher conferences, but I know, I'm sure you talked about our time that we would always, like around 5 or 5:30, as soon as we got home, we would take that time to be together, probably about 10, 15 minutes. And we always did it in front of our children. And it just, to me, it just works miracles. When children know that their parents love each other, there is something so comfortable about that. I don't know if you shared my story.
I did, probably not as well as you could, but I
Okay, well, I'll
did.
just recap
Okay.
it. I remember my mom and dad loved each other a lot, and my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom for a good part of my life, and when I was there with them, and I remember one morning they had an argument, and my dad left without kissing my mom. Can you share that? And it really just wrecked my whole day. I'm sure the teachers were like, what in the world is wrong with him? You know, because I couldn't wait to get home to see if my dad was coming home. And when I got home, I remember looking out the window and seeing his pickup come up, and I mean, oh man, I felt so good. And then when he came in, he gave my mom a kiss, and I just was back to myself again. You know, that there's something about security in these relationships in front of your children.
Well, and your role, I don't know that we talked about this much last week, but you're role modeling for them what you want them to do as adults. You want them to have stable, strong marriages and relationships. And when you model that, then they are seeing what that looks like every day, real life. You're modeling that for them. So I think that's really important.
So it really does go back to more is caught than taught. Because, you know, mom and dad taught me, you know, how to love Jane. They really did.
Good, good. Okay, so a stable marriage is one way. Okay, what were some other, if you're a single parent, what was another way that you could have a stable relationship in your family?
I think keeping a structure would be.
Okay, okay.
Very good.
That's
Mhm.
good. And we're gonna get to that, but let's talk a little bit about what we talked about last week. Does anybody remember, as a single parent, a good way to, a stable relationship that you need to have in your life?
Outside source to talk to.
Okay, okay.
Very good.
Okay. Okay, like a mentor person, right? Somebody that you're building a strong relationship with, you can bounce things off of, they're pointing you to spiritual truths, they're helping you along the way, you can have questions. You know, parenting is a very emotional relationship. Anybody experienced that? We're gonna talk today about reacting. I mean, there's a sense of, it's really hard not to tie your emotions into parenting. And so It's when you have someone else there, whether it's a spouse or a mentor, if you're single, there's something about that other person having sort of this objective point of view to help you walk along. Point out things maybe that you aren't able to see because you're clouded by emotion. And so that mentor person is really important. Did anybody make a point this week to try to focus in on someone who could be their mentor or could be a stable relationship in their life?
I have a really good friend who comes over a couple
Okay.
times a week.
Okay, good.
Good.
Perfect.
And then my Women of Valor mentor.
Very good.
And I'm always texting her,
Yeah.
what should I do?
Yeah, that's really good.
Great.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just having somebody like that. And usually people are willing and open to do that, but you have to be willing, to ask, so. Shelley, you've been a mentor to women, haven't you, before, parenting mentor? Okay. I was thinking maybe you had just come alongside, or at least encourage them to come to parenting class and things like that, so, yeah, so. All right, and then the major one was that relationship with God, and we talked a lot about that last week, just that He knows all the answers, He knows the plans for our kids. He is willing to speak clearly to you as you have a relationship with Him. So developing that relationship with Him is really key. And I can look around the room at some of you that I know you have made a decision to have a relationship with God, and it's been life-changing for you. Your relationships are different. Your parenting is different. You are more solid. You're okay even when things are not okay, and your kids see you as okay even when things aren't okay, because you have that solid foundation. So that's super important. All right, let's look at the homework. And we're looking at page 16 and 17. And one of the personal reflection questions was about what are you doing to prevent being a child-centered family, or maybe did you think about that and could change? How many of you thought about whether or not, how child-centered you were this week? Did that come up in your thoughts? Okay, somebody tell me what it means to be a child-centered family.
You put your child first before you put yourselves.
Okay, you put your child before the marriage. Everything's focused in on the children. Remember, we did the illustration where you got married and then you put your children in the middle, and then you have more children, and you begin to grow apart because you were so focused on them, your time, your finances, everything was about them. And then your children leave home and you find, oh my goodness, you're clear across the room and I don't even know what to talk to you about anymore. We have no relationship. So instead of making a child center, what do we talk about that we should do?
Make them an extension.
Okay, have them join the family instead of being the center. So the parents were continuing to hold hands, but they let go of one hand and had them join the family instead of become the center. But is it hard? Do you find yourself sometimes being child-centered? They take a lot, especially when they're little. You remember those first couple of years, they were so little, and they did demand your time. You're exhausted. You don't even have time for energy for your spouse anymore because you're so focused on that child and that baby. And so I think that can be true. Now, one thing we did not talk about last week, but I think happens, do we ever leave the child outside of the circle completely? What would that look like? If I'm totally self-consumed about my needs and my wants and my relationships, and a child is a pain to me, I don't have time, I don't have money, I don't have resources, then we're going to talk about the next couple of sessions about what it looks like to be a parent biologically only. Can you do that? Can you be a parent but not be parenting? Yeah, you can.
You can, but
It's
not
not
what you wanna
good.
do.
It's not, the right answer is that's not what you want to do. But Bill and I are going to talk about that. We see what we call children of the jungle. They're just surviving in the environment they're in. No one's really taking time to parent them. And so that can be another piece of that we didn't talk about. But obviously the ideal situation is you have two people raising this child and they're a happy addition to that family. All right, so let's look at the homework. It says explain what your relationship time currently looks with God and with your spouse or a mentor. So would anybody like to give me an answer, an example for relationship time that you spent this week with God, your spouse, or a mentor?
I spend time with God daily.
I call my husband every call day, but before I came to the program, my daughter was definitely number one.
Okay.
Like she'd tattle on daddy whenever daddy would do
Oh,
something she didn't
good.
like, and like it would
Good.
cause turmoil.
Okay, so what'd you learn last week about that? That's really good. So that
Yeah,
kind
I'm
of was
really
brought
gonna
out to
work
you.
on it. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Did you hear that the child was tattling on the dad? Who's in the center of this relationship? The child. The child has been given a sense of authority. That's what happens when you put it in the middle. They become the most important. And I think there's seasons, we probably all had seasons when our child thought they were the most important. Have you ever said to your child, the world does not revolve around you? But there's something that made them feel that way. You put them in the middle and now everything revolves around them. That's all we do is talk. And I think that if, one of the ways you can test if your child is child-centered is when the intention is not on them, will they could do whatever it takes to get your focus off what you're doing and off each other on the child. Okay, they have been put for something happened here that they feel like they're the center. So you're gonna have to, it doesn't just happen like, oh, we just had to move you out and just make you a nice addition. Now, you're gonna have to rearrange some of the things that you're doing because something has made them feel that way. And it's probably you, probably created your own monster.
I do remember when we first started our relationship time, we would have to sometimes say, Katie, this is mommy and daddy's time. You can sit here and watch us, or you can go in the other room and play. Well, of course, they'd sit and watch for a little while and then they'd go play, but it took effort.
Right.
We had to do that.
Right. And you see it. I mean, the best, I shouldn't probably even say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. But you can sit around and watch parenting.
Mm.
I mean, just sit on the bench at Walmart and just watch. Just observe. I mean, you could have a checklist, child-centered, not child-centered, I mean, you can, and you have to realize that we're gonna talk about today, you're gonna pay now or you're gonna pay later.
Mhm.
It's easier sometimes just give them what they want, just get this, do what, make them
Throw a little
child-centered.
fit, okay, here's the candy bar,
But
whatever.
what happens later? What happens later? So that's really good. All right, anybody else have, excellent answer. Good job, Letitia. Anybody else have an explanation for relationship time that what you currently did this week? Spouse, God, or mentor?
We did the couch time.
Okay, tell us about that.
Well, it was great.
You really
We
took a
don't
lot.
have interruption from kids. so-
Right. But you took away, that was a big takeaway for you last week.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so what was good about that?
The communication,
Yeah.
it just makes you feel closer to
Okay,
your spouse
okay, okay.
and just hear about their day
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's just kind of a good feeling, I
Right,
guess.
right.
It takes effort to do it, but once you start doing it, it pays huge dividends.
I'm sure.
I mean, we've had parents say, oh, our kids, they no longer are hyper anymore. And they sleep through the night, and all kinds of peace comes upon those children when they see mom and dad in a relationship that's strong. It's almost, I don't want to say magical because it's not, it's definitely a blessing from the Lord when they see that.
Well, and I think whether even, like some of you, your children are older, so you don't, I mean, it's not that difficult to find time to be together. Or you're empty nesters, or you don't have you're waiting to get your children back. Maybe your children have been taken out of the home. Practice this now. You can
Yes.
still do it. It's just because you don't have children right there doesn't mean you can't do it. It is I talked about last week, but it is a valuable time for us. If we don't get it face to face, we make an effort to make 15 minutes on the telephone. If we have, we know we're going different directions all evening, there is a time, I know, between 4:30 and 6 o'clock, if we're not gonna meet up, one of us is gonna call each other. And it just kind of centers you back with your day and with your schedule and things like that. So really, really important. Anybody else wanna share what it looked like this week for them? Okay, did everybody do it? You filled out your little charts, right? Look at your neighbor's paper and see if they filled out their charts.
We didn't.
Oh, okay,
really
good.
change much over it.
Start again, I'm sorry.
We didn't really change much on it.
Okay.
Part of our recovery, we read like just for today, and a couple Bible verses in the morning.
Okay,
Nice.
Sit around and talk.
okay. So you're already doing that. Okay,
That's good.
can you see a difference from when you started doing it? Have you always done that?
Well, since we've been together, yeah.
Okay,
It's
okay.
just been part of our recovery.
Okay,
Nice.
good.
Been doing recovery together.
Okay, good, that's really good. And you found, I mean, you're coming together on that same solid
I mean, I
piece.
know that it works a lot better than not a relationship had in the past.
Right, good, okay, good for you, it's awesome, it's awesome. All right, and then on the chart on page 17, you talked about where you had your relationship time. Why do you think that question is on there? When and where? Why would I even ask that? Why would we put that on there? When and where did you have your relationship time? Why is that important?
Maybe you're stuck in the bathroom with the kids outside the door.
Okay.
The hand sticking out. Don't worry, I get that.
There's something key about a specific time and a specific place. It doesn't matter what it is. It really doesn't, but there is something about, and I tell people, if you want to start getting to know God, having a relationship with Him, make a specific time and a specific place. And you always meet Him there at that exact time. There's something about the routine of doing it the same way. We're gonna meet up on the couch at 6:30 every night, and that's how it's gonna look. That's just what we do. There's something, because we're creatures of habit, aren't we? Doing the same thing. And your children, we're gonna talk about this in the next couple of chapters too. There's an expectancy. It's done the same way. How many of your children like to watch the same movie over and over and over again? They want to sit in the same chair. They want to drink juice out of the same cup. There's something about the expectancy and knowing it's going to happen. What would happen if every night they saw their parents go to the same place, the same time? They were always there. They came through. His dad always came home the same time, kissed his mom, same place, standing in the kitchen, and moved on with their day. There's something about that routine. So that's why I asked that. Make a time, make a place, and make it happen every single day.
That's good.
When and where did you have a relationship time with your spouse or mentor today? And was it easy or difficult? Did anybody start this as a new routine and found it super easy or found it super difficult? I'll give you a $100 bill if somebody answers this question. I'm just kidding. But y'all are quiet. You're all like, honey, get out that $100 bill.
Okay.
Laura.
I wasn't here last week, but I was reading through the homework and I thought about some things that we could definitely change. And with us, it's hard because my husband's traveled for the last, since we've been together, he's traveled for work. And I went with him for the first 10 years and then I stayed home now with the kids. But we're just now trying to get back into a normal routine.
Okay.
He just got a job back here.
Okay.
And he's really like, he loves his sports news, he loves his news, he loves to
Right.
listen to his radio constantly, and so like it's hard for, I don't wanna like, it's hard for me to say, hey, I'm kind of, you know, like, can you try to turn that off so we can have stuff? He has a specific time he listens to it, and it's like 3 times a day.
Right, right.
I'm working on how to approach that.
Okay.
and I
That's good, and you
definitely have some
mentioned
ideas.
watching the video and doing it together, but I
Yeah.
think, like, going to your husband when he's starting to watch the news and saying, can we spend time together now? You know, he's like, no, you know, whatever, or later. But what would happen if, you know, at night when you went to bed, just said, you know, I feel like every day if we could just spend 10 minutes together, what would be a good 10 minutes for you tomorrow? You know, and just, because you're right, a routine. And then, does anybody else have spouses that work out of town?
So, my husband's gone all the time too, and he's only home like 36 hours a week, and so he loves to watch the news every morning. So what I do is I just get up and go and sit next to him, let him watch his news, but I could very well sleep or go do something else.
That's good.
But I just go and I just sit next to him, let him watch his news. I don't say anything until the sports comes on, and then I start talking, but no, not really. No. So, and that's what I do. I just spend that time with him in what he likes and what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then maybe at the end of that, having, I mean, the conversation piece is important, but I think that or are you willing to go do something that they like to do? I mean, are you willing to just find time to be with him? You know, it's not always convenient. Because Phil, he's a morning person. And so if I'm willing to get up at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, he'll talk away to me. And I remember thinking, okay, I gotta make myself do this. I don't want to do this, you know, when we were young.
10 o'clock at night? Oh.
Yeah, I'm ready to 10 o'clock. Let's have a conversation. So, but I think that's a really good, that's why it makes it difficult though, and then finding a way around that. Anybody else? How about easy? It was easy for you. Is this something new that y'all started or?
No.
Okay.
We've done this for a long time.
Okay.
But I've just noticed that before we wrote all of this down, I'm just like, well, every day after work,
Okay.
I mean, he comes and picks me up, takes me home, and we'll sit there and talk about everything that's happened that day. And then Emily comes and at the tail end of that conversation.
Okay.
And then we ask her how her day went.
Wow, it's really good. It's really
That's
good.
good.
Just such a stability there. That's really good, really good. All right, if you didn't do this week, do it. Make a time, read back through the homework, just the point of finding time every day. Not, if you have little kids, not waiting until they go to bed, but letting them see you together, that's the point of it. If you don't have a relationship with God, working that in there. He knows the answer, so spend some time with him so you can figure out what the answer is. And if you're a single parent, ask God to show you someone that he can bring into your life that you can walk with this and have somebody else with you in this. I love that. Stacy, you've done a great job with that. Whether it's calling somebody, finding somebody, and you can see where God has blessed you with that person and that. And so, but don't skip over this. We're building, and we're gonna get ready to do session 3, but that first one was,
More is caught than
be
taught.
aware of what your children are watching, what you're training them. They are going to become you. Okay? And then that stable relationships and how important that is. And then today, we're going to talk about pay now or pay later. So
Did
let's
you
go
talk
ahead and
about
do that.
date nights and stuff like that?
I didn't
You
say
didn't?
much about that, so go ahead and
Okay.
say that. Well, I forgot what they were like, we had,
Well, you gotta
Our date
be
night
sure,
parenting class.
be sure and put those in. Your children need to see you going on a date with your wife, and make sure that you have that in front of them, or they at least see you, or, get a babysitter every once in a while for that reason, and
Bring flowers once a
bring
week.
flowers, or,
Once a
pick
week.
some out. Pick some out in the yard and teach your son to take them in and say, hey, Mom, I got you some flowers.
Can't do that now, you're gonna have to go to the flower shop
Oh,
once a
no,
week.
you have to go. It's just way too cold out there. But those things are so important that dads are doing those for their children and do that in front of them. They really need to see that. So,
I think you need to keep hugging in front of your adult children.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
They'll say, oh, gross, or whatever, but do it.
Yeah, you're modeling for them. Yeah, I think that's good. That's good. And there is a lot to be said about what you're modeling for them, how you treat your spouse. I remember thinking in my mind, I want my kids to think their dad is the smartest guy in the world. Like, I really do. Like, there would be times when I knew the answer, but I'd say, you're not gonna ask your dad about it. He knows all about that. And they would ask him, or just that sense of still opening your door for your wife. I mean, those are things you're modeling for your children, so really hone into that as well. So, all right, so let's go. Session 3 is on page 21. And this one is pay now or pay later. What do you think of when I say pay now or pay later? Any situations in your life you're gonna either pay now or pay later? Okay, your credit card, that's right.
You treat your kids, you're gonna pay for an hour, pay for an hour.
You're right. How you treat them. You're gonna pay now or pay a whole lot more later. So, and it is work. Parenting is work.
Let's go to credit cards. Credit card's a great example. What does that mean, pay now or pay later? If you use a credit card, you don't have to pay now, right?
Pay more
But
later.
you pay more later.
But you
A
pay
whole
more
lot more
later,
later.
and that's what we're gonna talk about in parenting, is the exact same thing. Good answer. That's a good one. So,
If you can't control your 2-year-old, you can't control, you're not gonna be able to control your 13.
right.
Yep. That's
Or the way you can control your 2-year-old won't work anymore when they're 13.
teen. That's true too.
I mean, you can overpower them at 2. You can pick them up and have them do what you want, but at 13, you're probably not gonna be able to do that, so you're right.
Okay, it says pay now or pay later. Train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. Proverbs 22:6.
Is it typo?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You will not depart from it. And it's a promise. I mean, if God says, hey, you do this, I will do this. And it's so important that you do it. But it's train up. It's, so many times parents take the easy way. No. I said no. 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 Because I said so. No. I mean, that's the easy way of parenting. And sure, a child will respect that no after a while, and they will. But if you don't train them up, it's not gonna have much effect later. So, we got to invest, and it takes time to invest. To pay up front takes a lot of time. So the goal of this session is to understand that with God's guidance and wisdom, you are molding and shaping the heart of your child. As you help your children understand biblical and moral truths by explaining in non-conflict time and at teachable moments, the result will be children who are able to have a bank of values to draw from when you're not with them, or as they grow and make decisions on their own. So what you're doing is it's kind of like they're like little computers, and as you instill moral reasons why within them, they have something to draw upon later when you're not around, because you've taken that time to do it. But it takes intentionality. You have to be intentional about teaching and teaching it. And it has to start when they're young. Now, if you have older kids, you can still do this, but you have to go back and start reteaching moral values into your older children. You might not have done that. So it's never too late to start teaching the moral reasons why.
So if you think about it, just think about your own parenting. How much time are you taking with that child, helping them understand why you do or do not want them to do something, or even training them in situations? If you think about it, there's so many new opportunities and situations your children come into every single day. Things that maybe you've done before but they've never done, or know how to do something. If you just walk through life but you never stop and train them and show them, which takes a lot more time to parent this way, talking them through things, taking time to do it. If you don't do that, they won't know how to do it. They won't be trained in that area. The other thing is when they do something that you don't want them to do, why don't you want them to do it? You need to know why. And then you're going to talk them through and help them understand.
What's hard, I think what's hard is everybody teaches things are situational.
Okay.
Like, it's not okay to steal unless
Right.
you're hungry and it's okay.
Right, and that's
There's
what,
always an okay reason to do something wrong.
right, and
to
that's where,
justify.
that's good, and that's really good, because that's why we put moral biblical truth. What is our standard? We gotta figure out what our standard is, because culture will continue to change and things will be okay. Even if we follow media, if we follow culture, you've got to decide. And for us, the rule book was the Word of God. We're gonna do it the way God says to do it. That's gonna be our standard. When you called and I said, this is faith-based, this means that we feel like He had the best plan and we're gonna follow it. And our kids knew that too, and I told that story the first session. I said, someday, I tell the kids, someday I'm gonna stand before God. For some reason, God chose me to be your mom. I'm the one, I'm the lucky winner. Chicken dinner, that's me, I got it. So, but when I get there, He entrusted you with me, so I'm going to follow the plan I believe He has for your life, and I'm accountable for that. So I will follow that. So I think that's good. We have to figure out what are we gonna follow, because it will be very loose if you don't. Because your kids will also inform you that you're parenting different than their friends' parents, which you probably are. And we would say, well, you were born a Heeke, so this is how we're doing it. Lucky day for you.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good point.
But going back to the objective, we're going to be shaping the heart of your child, and the teaching these moral values has to be done in non-conflict, because research shows, and I even talk to my teachers about this, because when conflict arises, the brain changes, and it's very hard for them to learn during that high conflict time. You have a lot of argument, a lot of yelling, a lot of door slamming, things like that. They will probably do what you say for them to do, but they aren't going to learn very much during that time. So if you let's say you have an argument and you start, well, the reason why, or the moral reason why, and all of that, they aren't going to learn it. It just doesn't take place. It might take 12 hours before they can calm themselves down to learn again. Sometimes when we have kids come to school and you can tell they've had conflict in the morning, maybe it was on their way to school, they couldn't find their book bag and parent yells at them and all of that, and they just come with that look on their face. Not much learning is going to happen with that child. Not till maybe after lunch, hopefully. Unless if the conflict or the trauma is very severe, learning might not take place for a very long time. So that's called conflict. But in non-conflict times, children can learn so much. They're like sponges. They just absorb what you're teaching them. And making yourself intentionally teaching during non-conflict is something you have to do. You have to say to yourself, I'm going to make specific times and do specific things to teach in non-conflict.
And so the reason he's saying that is because you want to teach at a time when you can change their heart,
Yeah.
not just their behavior. Okay, so are we parenting to change the behavior, to get them to do what we want them to do now, or are we parenting to change the heart? All right, so if you look on page 21 at that first question, it says, what's the difference between parenting a child to get them to obey and parenting a child to teach them and train them? So just from what you've heard or what you already know, how would you answer that question? So just take a few minutes and think about it, write an answer, and then share with somebody close to you on number 1.
Jim forgot his glasses. We want to share our stories. Okay, anybody have a good, strong answer? Big difference between parenting to get them to obey and parenting to teach and train. What's the difference?
Love and support.
What?
Love and support.
Okay, which one? Okay, okay.
Obedience during the conflict times and the training and teaching for the non-conflict times when the child is more teachable.
Okay. What's our ultimate goal here as parents? What do you want? What's your ultimate goal for your children? Okay, good. For them to be doing the right thing even when you're not there to tell them. That is ultimately great, right? Or when they're 17 and you don't have control anymore. Is your goal for them to know the right thing and choose to do it? Yes.
You can want to.
Okay, and them to want to do the right thing, to understand why. Or at least know they have a choice, understand what they should do. If they choose not to, they know they've done the wrong thing, right? And so the difference between that is we can get kids to obey. How can you get kids to obey without training and teaching them?
Modeling.
Okay. Have you ever done anything out of fear of being punished? Are there things that you do, if you know you're not gonna get caught, you do the wrong thing? Okay, no confessions here, but right? Okay, same way with kids. If we teach them to get them to obey, then when you're around, they're gonna do it. Or they're gonna do it because they're afraid of being punished, they're afraid of being caught. So what happens when they're not with you? What happens when they're 17 and you don't have control anymore?
Sometimes they have to make their own decisions on how it goes. and
Okay.
Sometimes they right, sometimes they
Okay,
It's true.
but what if when children, or anybody have children under the age of 5 here? Okay, what if these little children, you're continually teaching them and training them why it's important that you do this? You're modeling, you do it for them. What happens when they're 5? They think it's normal. That's what we do. It becomes norm. 7, it becomes norm. This is why we do that. And you're taking a lot of time to talk to
It is
them
a
about
lot
it.
of time.
You're taking a lot of time to model it over and over and over again. It becomes norm. That's the thing about parenting that just blows me away. I wish I would have known more than I know now. But if I would have known when my kids were 2 what I know now, you can create whatever, you can create the normal, you can create the right. Because they think you know. You're deciding, and so I think that but it takes time to model and train. We don't want them to do it just because they're afraid they're gonna get caught. We want them to do it because they know the right thing to do. So that's the difference between the two. And I think number two, this just will help you as we go through it. How are you parenting currently? Think about how you're parenting. Are you parenting by reaction to the negative behavior? Are you saying, do it now because I said so, you better get busy. If you don't, I'm going to spank you. Everything has a threat behind it. It doesn't seem easy, but that's the easy, quick way to parent. Anybody ever parented that way? Everybody raise your hand. Absolutely, right? Okay, but that's not the way, we don't want that to be the norm. We don't want to be reactionary parents. We want to be thinking through this. That's why you're here. That's why you took a parenting class. Because you want to set your kids up for success. You want to be thinking about it ahead of time. None of your kids are with you, except for maybe a teenager or two here or there. But you're learning in a non-conflict time so you can go and parent when the situation comes up. Parenting is emotional. You're going to be tired. They're going to do things that make you mad. But if you have ahead of time thought through what we're going to do, then it makes a huge amount of difference. So
It's good, really good.
and then number three, why is it important for your child to make good decisions both when you are there to see and when you are there to not see? When would it be good that your kids were making good choices but you are not there to see it? What?
Always? I don't know what you're asking.
Okay, like you're not there, but it's important that they obey. School's a great example. You are not going to be there to tell them. Anybody ever had a child that wasn't good at school? Okay, is that a problem? It's a problem, isn't it? It is a problem. And so the goal is to begin to train them so even when you're not there, they're making good choices and doing it, because it gets very difficult when that happens. So school's an example. Any other examples?
Friend time.
What?
Friend time.
Good. When they're with a friend, do you want them making good choices or at least know why? Yes, because it could get very difficult for them. Even just safety reasons. It's just, and you can think of little bitty kids. Why do we stop at the curb, and look both ways before we cross the street? Why do we do that? Okay, but if I'm 3, do I know that? No, we're gonna talk about walking to the curb. This is a curb. This is a stop right here. You're gonna only go this far. You're gonna look to the right, you're gonna look to the left, you're gonna look to the right again. Then you're gonna think, should I cross? You're modeling, that takes a lot of time, right? But you're modeling safety, not just because. Do you want your child to get into a car with someone who has a cool new Batman toy? No, you do not. But you've got to be talking about that and training that and telling them why we don't get in the car with a guy that we don't know that has a cool Batman toy, right? So it takes more time, but it's important that's why it's important we make good decisions, honestly.
Can you tell that story about the one-way circle?
Yeah, it's good.
We used to live on this one-way circle just a little bit south of the high school. And right after school and different times, I mean, cars, it was like a little raceway. They'd drive around through there at 30, 40 miles an hour.
No sidewalks.
No sidewalks. And so our kids were always going down the street, across the street to play with a friend. And we were just always, hey, you've got to look both ways before you cross the street. You've got to. I mean, this was a safety issue. And one day, you look for those opportune moments, those teachable moments. And we were just pulling out of the drive and we were leaving and we pulled up to the stop sign and this squirrel started to run out in front of us. And of course, Katie and Kai and I, we all look at it because it catches our eye. And I go, look, there's a squirrel, and it starts right out on to Washington Street, and this car, boom, hits that squirrel. It rolls off into the gutter, and so I pull the car over, and we get out, we go walking over there, and we look down at it, and it had its tongue sticking out, eyeball popped out. I mean, this thing was dead. And I looked at it and said, I go, he didn't look both ways before he crossed the street. You know, excellent teachable moment. I got capitalized on that one.
both of their hands
Yeah.
walked all the way
over
over to look at it.
So,
Was
our
it just
kids
like-
never did get run over. But you know, looking for those opportunities, those teachable moments, and you never know when they're gonna show up, but then taking the time and effort to utilize them.
And you know, that sounds so basic, but why don't we do that very well? It takes time.
Takes time.
It really does. I mean, honestly, I didn't walk over there with them. I wanted to get the groceries in the house. I remember that moment. I mean, like, I don't have time for this. Should I make time for that? Yes. And so I think that today, if you take nothing else away from tonight, take time to parent. Take time to parent. It will be more important than what you have to do right now, that you think is so important. And so taking that time to parent is huge. And so with that is we want to create teachable moments. You've got to think of these ahead of time. They don't just happen because we are busy. So you got to create teachable moments that you're going to teach your child what you want from them. All right? So there's a couple of ways you do that. One is non-conflict. Think of a non-conflict time that you can correct. Okay? So I want everybody to think of something that your child does that is wrong. You don't want them to do it anymore. You're trying to correct the behavior. Okay? It can be rude, being rude. It can be not picking up the room. It can be whatever.
Being your brother or
Okay?
sister.
Pokey in the morning, makes
Yeah.
you late for work, you know, just whatever. Can everybody think of one parent situation? Anybody have perfect children? I can't think of anything. Okay. Well, let's throw one out there. Somebody share something, a struggle that you have with your child.
Rude, sarcastic.
Okay, to you. Okay,
Yes.
to you? Okay, all right. So-
And to other people
Okay,
as
all right.
well.
Okay, so this sense of talking it back, the freedom of saying what I want to say when I want to say. Anybody else ever have that problem? Oh, okay, 3 of you, 4 of you. All right, here we go. All right, so that is something that you would work on. All right, now, have you ever gone in a power struggle the minute they started spouting off? You were so mad, you started spouting back. What happened? Did we win? No. It became a power struggle of who had the best language and words, or you overpowered them and trumped them by some kind of throwing out some kind of punishment. You're grounded for a week. Kept going. 2 weeks. Kept going. 4 weeks. Kept going. Okay, for life, get to your room. I will slide food under. It's ridiculous. You know, you went like this, right? It didn't do any good. The problem was, it's conflict. You've wrapped emotions into this parenting now. You're going to lose. You're going to lose, right? You have a saying for that.
Well, yeah, I always tell the teachers, I said, it takes one fool to start an argument. It takes 2 to make a conversation out of it. So who's the second one? You know,
The parent, right? Okay. So what we want to do is we want help our child to understand why this is a bad thing. Why is it bad to be rude and sarcastic to people? Okay? They don't get it. Or obviously, they wouldn't keep doing it. So we've got to find a time that we can talk about this, begin to shape their heart that it's non-conflict. The middle of the throwing things back and forth is not going to be the time. It's not going to matter. You may get them to be quiet because now you've taken the car, now that you've turned off the TV, you may get them to do the behavior, but you've made no heart change here, and you're just going to have to revisit this again. So parenting in non-conflict is huge because in non-conflict, there's an open heart to what you want. Now, it may take more than once. If it's a long time habit, maybe. So what are some non-conflict times that you have? Stacey, we're going to pull you up because you gave the example. What are some times when things are good and things are calm during your day?
In the evening, around supper time.
Okay.
You know, when we sit at the table. and-
Okay.
good.
Sitting down to eat, having supper, talking, okay? Those are great times to talk about and ask God to give you wisdom, but talk about things like, you know, I love hanging out with my friend Sue because we have great conversations. Like, I never fight with her. We don't say rude things. I listen when she talks. She listens when I talk. So we have a great relationship. Begin to move into that. The reason we have a great relationship is because we respect each other. Like, even if she doesn't agree with what I'm saying, she doesn't ever like yell and cut me off, tell me to shut up, I have something to say. She just never, does she do that? And you ask her, she knows, she sees that. But we love each other and we have a mutual respect. But if she starts doing that to me, I'm not gonna wanna hang out with her. It's just too much. So Do you ever see that maybe you and I have that trouble sometimes? Like and the reason I don't want to do that is because I don't want you to treat me that way, but I sure don't want you to treat anybody else that way. People won't want to be around you. We don't like it. Do you like it when people treat, but you're talking about it and you're trying to do it in very non-conflict, like not now you need to stop doing that. Now you've created conflict again. But there's something about shaping her heart, telling her to non-conflict that may, it probably won't quit that moment, but you can go back and do it. What other non-conflict times do you guys have in your houses?
I have like a sort of a problem that I'd like to have help with.
Okay,
My daughter's 5 and she loves to manipulate people.
okay. Okay, we'll get to that and more specifically. Okay, so just hold on to that question. Let's kind of go back. I just want to talk about, what are your non-conflict times at home? When are things going smoothly?
I was like,
What?
I was like bedtime.
Bedtime. Bedtime's a big one.
When they talk about it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great time.
and bedtime, kids don't want to go to sleep. So they're pretty open to you talking to them at that time. So you have a good example
Yeah,
of bedtime.
when our kids were really little, that was a very important time for me, was to go in and sit on the edge of their bed and just kind of talk to them. And they always, like you said, they want to talk and they don't want to go to sleep yet. So there was a couple of things that I would do. I'd tell them a story. And usually my stories would be kind of crazy and fun, and they would always have a moral within them. And I'd tell them and then the next day finish the story. But they would all be sitting there together, Katie and Kai, and they'd be like all excited about the story and stuff. And I'd always teach a moral or try to teach a moral. A lot of times it was too much of a good thing isn't always a good thing, and I know that because it leads to addictions and things like that. But one of the things I always did was, okay, you got one question. And so they'd think, okay, I gotta have a good question for Daddy tonight. It started out a lot of times, why is the sky blue? Or what was this? And they'd just ask questions. And Kai he was like, what if? What if a meteorite came out of the sky and landed on your car or whatever? I mean, it's crazy stuff, but it was fun. And we would do that. And then as they grew older, and sometimes it would be like, Dad, why did that guy in the wheelchair, why would somebody treat him bad? And things like that. Or, we have a kid at school that's different and things like that. And so some of them led into some really good conversations. But when they turned a little bit older and they were in middle school, about that time, sometimes I'd sit on the edge of their bed and say, hey, it's my turn to ask the questions. Because I did it for a long time for you guys, you owe me. And so it was great conversation, how things going at school? What'd you do in science today? And just things like that. Or, are you getting along with everybody? How's things going? And it was good. We had great communication, but you have to start. And so you can start at any age doing that. Just get that communication going. But bedtime was an awesome
But
opportunity.
it still takes time.
Mhm.
There's still that sense of everybody just shut up, get your drink, get your pajamas on, get to bed, leave me alone, I'm tired. But you chose to, I think
do the
about as
hard
a
thing.
teenager, I remember, we have curfew for our kids, but it was so tired. I didn't want to stay up. But I'm telling you, the best thing I ever did was when my kids were in high school, was willing to stay up late,
Mhm.
let them cook a pizza at midnight. Like, I didn't want to. Nothing in me wanted to do that. But boy, that's when we had conversation. That's when we could talk. So it's like, as a parent, you're sacrificing your time to invest time in them. Those become non-conflict times to talk to them. One of mine, I wasn't very good. I wasn't very good at bedtime. I let him do that part because I was tired.
I wasn't good at midnight. I was sleeping when she was doing the
When I had to be
pizzas.
teenagers, I took over. But when you're in the car, you talk. You talk going from place to place. And I remember when I thought, maybe I've overdone this, because I would always say, anybody want to go to Sonic or whatever, and ice cream, yeah. I remember one time Katie goes, I will go to Sonic with you, but I don't want to talk about anything. I just want to go to Sonic and come home. And I thought, well, maybe I've overdone this for years and years and years, non-conflict conversation. But those are times
Great
when
times.
your children are little, they're trapped in their seatbelts, and you're having conversation, and you're talking about things. Anybody have trouble with their kids in the mornings, getting ready in the mornings? Okay, some of those things you need to bypass, let them go. Don't fight from 7 to 7:30. It's not gonna do any good. They're gonna get to school and they can't learn. But what happens then that night before you go to bed? Let's make a plan for tomorrow. Today was hard. Today was really hard. You were frustrated, I was frustrated, you said things you shouldn't have said. It was a bad morning. You gotta think about what's tomorrow gonna look like, how can we do this differently? It's non-conflict, you aren't fighting. You arranged a time to do that. So find those teachable moments when you're trying to teach them something they've done. You can correct behavior, but don't try to give them the moral reason why during the conflict or right at that time, all right? And so teaching them those things.
Well, and something I just want to add, going back to building a strong foundation. If you're working on this together, you can talk about it during your relationship time, and you can both be on the same page. And you say, we did that a lot. We did a lot of parenting, or at least talking together during our relationship time. Hey, we're working on this with Kai. We need to be on the same page, and we need to both talk the same talk,
Right.
and
And
have
how
the
do we
same
feel about it?
expectations.
Like, things that drove me crazy that didn't drive him crazy, or vice versa? Okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
Even though it doesn't drive you crazy, it's not okay that you're disagreeing
Right.
in front
I
of
needed
him
to
to me.
support
We
her.
gotta be on the same page on this, and that couch time was a huge.
It was huge for keeping us on the same page.
Yeah. And so another thing that you can do in non-conflict is you can pre-teach.
This is good.
You can
Really good.
pre-teach, okay. What do you want from your child? What is your expectation before you get to the situation, all right? Now, it could be something you've had trouble with up to this point, but it may just be a common courtesy, all right? And one that I can think of was, our daughter was super shy. Like, we took that and we said to her, we are not going to make excuses for your shyness. It's rude. It's just rude. When you choose not to be friendly and nice to people, it's rude. It makes them feel unimportant. It's not good. So, you hear people, they're like, their child won't say, like, well, they're just shy. You've just made an excuse for their behavior. And we just had decided we weren't going to do that. We were friendly people. We wanted people to feel loved and accepted when they were around us, and we want our kids to do the same thing. So that wasn't okay with us. And so church was a great time. We were always gonna go to church. We were always gonna pretty much meet the same people. And so the rudeness kind of got bad. Like Katie, we'd get her ready and we'd go, and they'd somebody say hi. And I'm like, that is just rude. And she was little, but we said, okay, here's what we're gonna do. On the way to church, we always talked about, what are we gonna do when we get there? When we get there, Mr. Dorman is going to be at the door, because he always greeted at the same door. And he's going to say hello to you, and he's gonna tell you that you look nice. He does it every single Sunday. All right, so that's what's gonna happen, right? Okay, so what are you going to do? And we would even say things like, I want you, when we get home, when we're driving home from church today, we're gonna ask you what color Mr. Dorman's eyes are. Because it's not just okay to say hi, you need to be looking him in the eye. And you're gonna say hello to him, okay? If you choose to be rude to him, there will be consequences for rude behavior. That's not how we treat people. We love him. Here's where the training came in. We love him. He's important to us. He's part of our church family. We want him to know how much we love him. And when we treat him that way, he doesn't know. So Dad's gonna shake his hand. I'm gonna hug him. I'm gonna look him in the eye. We love Mr. Dorman. We love him. We appreciate him. That's why we're kind to him. And so all the way this happened. So what happens when we get there? Sometimes she did the right thing, sometimes she didn't, but there was always a consequence for her not doing the right thing. That's character building. Could we have just not, who cares? It's not that big a deal. Let them run when you get there. It is important. We now have, and it was hard for her all the way through. She was never the outgoing. She is now. That's what she does. She's it was trained. And so anybody have trouble with their kids in the store? How do you want your kids to act in the store? Do you have some?
What were the consequences?
The consequences a lot of times were Sunday afternoon, whatever that was, whether that was a movie on the Sunday afternoon, not this Sunday. We'll try again next Sunday. We're not mad or yelling. We're just, you chose to disobey, so this is the consequence. There won't be any movies this afternoon. You can stay in your room and read. We'll try again next Sunday. And we're gonna talk about some of those ways to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, could we actually parent without yelling and screaming and throwing a fit?
Calm.
But we're gonna have to figure out how to do it. So, going to the store is a really big deal. And you know what? As parents, we're not super smart. Like, we have the same problem every single time. Why? We're the parent. Why can't we correct this? All right? So when you go to the store, how do you want your kids to act?
Not like a wild animal.
Okay.
First of all, don't take him on his nap time.
Okay, good. You're setting them up for success. That's a
Set
great,
'em
that's
up
a
for
great,
success.
that's a good
Yep.
point. is you can't expect them to do, you know, or they're, how do you act when you're hungry and tired?
Context of the
Same way, you
situation.
throw
Yeah.
yourself on the floor and Mick has to say, Sam.
You know, I don't know if she does that.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
you. That's Jane too. She gets this.
I apologize for anything I did while I was hungry.
Angry. Hunger, angry. Angry.
Okay, so I want them to walk beside the cart. So today, when we go into Walmart, we're gonna hold on to the cart. Don't have to get in it, but you have to hold on to it, okay? We're only buying what's on the list. Here's what's on the list. Let's read it together, okay? When we get to the checkout, we're not buying anything on the checkout. Okay, so you've established ahead of time what you want. You're pre-teaching. And maybe the next time you ask questions on the way. Okay, somebody help me out here. What do we do when we get there? What are we not buying? You know, what are we buying? You know, all these things. When we see someone we know, we say hello to them, you know, whatever. So you're pre-teaching.
Pre-teaching.
Now, we've decided to do it. There might be some reminders when we get there, and this is the next lesson, but they did not meet the expectation, so there's a consequence for that. They just chose not to meet the expectation. We may not finish our grocery shopping today. We may go on. But the pre-teaching is non-conflict. Nothing has happened yet, but you're giving them expectation.
And then, you know, and of course, we'll get into it more with the next one, but then the second time, you still are pre-teaching. And after a few pre-teachings, they do start to realize, oh, okay, this is the expectation. And we'll talk about that next week. But these non-conflict times is just so important, you know, setting those up and building that bank. Because as they get older, they have something to fall back upon. They have a situation that they know about that they've been. And I don't know if I've ever shared this story, but I know of a time that it actually saved my life. I really believe it did. My 5th grade year was a very traumatic year because 2 of my good friends died that year. And in a small town, that is very hard on kids, and it was very hard on me. One of them was my good friend Terry Proctor. Him and I, we were both 5th grade, and when we were done on Saturday morning, we could go clean the theater, sweep up all the popcorn and stuff, and the guy at the theater would give us 2 tickets to come to the show on Saturday night. So we would show up there about 10 o'clock, and we'd get done sweeping the place probably about noon and getting it all cleaned up. And I remember my mom saying, hey, don't go anywhere, you come home, be home by 1 o'clock. And I said, you know, okay. Well, Terry's brother shows up, and he was 15, and he goes, hey, I'm gonna run and buy some beer in Podunk, Oklahoma, because the town I lived in was dry.
Is the name really Podunk?
Yeah, Podunk, Oklahoma. That was right across the border from Hemphill County, which was a dry county there in Texas. And he said, and I thought to myself, okay, it's 30 minutes there and 30 minutes. I could do that. And Terry goes, come on, you come with me. And I remember my mom saying, don't go anywhere unless you let me know what you're going to do. And at that time, you'd have to use the phone there and call. And I thought, no, I'm just going to go home. Well, about 2 hours later, I learned that my friend, they were coming back from Podunk, Oklahoma, and his brother got drunk and missed the curve right outside of Canadian and rolled the car, and the car rolled over him, and the mirror poked a hole in his head and killed my friend. And I'm like, wow, that was one lesson that I was so glad I listened to my voice in my head, where my mom said, hey, be sure, because I could have easily have been in that car. You know, you know, the other one was the chief of police. His son was my age. His name was Gregory, and his dad took him out to target shoot with him, and they were shooting a semi-automatic pistol, and Greg shot the gun, and it recoiled back, and he shot himself on accident. And of course, I learned, you know, never to play with guns or anything like that, but you know, those were very traumatic things, and those were things that really taught me a lesson, you know, and I learned from that. But it was a sad year.
Well, I think that sense of when your child does something wrong, instead of reacting, stop it, just quit doing that, and responding and saying, you know, I need you to not do that anymore. And if it's not a high emotional moment, let's talk about why this is so important. I think we assume our kids know things they don't know. They don't have the bank of knowledge that we have that says, this is why we don't do this. And I love you. This has nothing to do with, you know, punishing you or being a mean parent. Because I think when we don't tell them, do they often just think, they just want to make my life miserable. They don't, but let's talk about why we don't do that. Because we love you, because this is the safety, because God has given you to me to protect you and to love you and teach you so you'll be an adult. And so I think that we talk about responding or reacting. When your child does something, do you immediately react, just to get through it, to have them stop, and then you go on and you never talk about it again? Do they even know why you want them to do what they want to do? And so you really are shaping the heart of the child and making a moral reason why. And I would encourage you to think ahead. What do you want from your children? What's the moral bank? It would be like if we had this one, like, okay, everybody every time you do something, put a dime in. Every time you give a moral reason why, put a dime in. Then you're gonna hand the child the cup. And how old are you?
16.
Okay, at 16, he's carrying around this cup that has been told why he shouldn't do it. So when a situation comes up, he's like, I do know. And he pulls out a deposit that's been put in him, and he chooses to do the right thing. Okay? But someone explained to him, they deposited him, and they deposit. You never know when they're going to need to know that. The ball rolls across the street. That squirrel. Somebody took the time to show me that squirrel. I'm not just gonna immediately run out after that. I'm gonna think. It was such a powerful teaching tool, but it took 10 extra minutes. The ice cream melted a little to get in, but it didn't matter. You know, so you're depositing so that they can withdraw from it.
And you do have to be intentional about doing this. Like Jane says, you gotta plan these times.
So, okay, let's look at the discussion questions here. I think we covered everything. On page
One thing I
22.
always tell Destiny is, you know, when she has a behavior, it's like, I love you.
Right.
I don't love the behavior, but I love
Yeah,
you.
yeah, that's good.
Just to reinforce that, you know, just because she's misbehaving, yeah, in the moment I might be frustrated or whatever, lose my temper, but I love her.
Right.
Just not the behavior.
Right. And I think that's a good point too, like in the parenting, one of the things that we've talked about is, I lost my train of thought. It's okay to go back and apologize to your kids. It's okay to
That's
go
good.
back and go, you know what, I reacted. I mean, you pushed my button on that one, and I lost it. But I know that's not the right thing to do. I need you to know that that struck me because maybe it was because I used to act that way and did the same thing, and it scares me to death that you're gonna be what I did. And so that you know, stirred something in me. But it's okay to go back and go, I'm gonna try to respond and not react. Because I think we're shocked, it goes back as more than taught that count. We are shocked at the way our kids talk to us and how they respond. But evaluate how you talk to and how you respond, maybe to your own parent or to your own, that's one that got me. I remember like not being nice to my mom, even as an adult. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how can I expect anything from my own child? She's watching me not being nice to my own mom. And then I'm like, just appalled that she treats me that way. Well, you know, so you've gotta, so I had to go back and say, you know what, I'm sorry. And I realized she loves her grandma. She didn't know some of the inside stuff that I had the right to treat her rude. She didn't, you know, I mean, I didn't, but I apologized and said, I want you to treat me kind, and I'm gonna treat my mom kind, and I'm sorry that you saw me being like that, or whatever. So it's okay to apologize as well. All right, so let's look at the group discussion questions here. These are things that we've talked about, but again, for you to process through. Number one, what's the importance of taking time to give the child the biblical truth or the moral explanation when guiding their behavior? So if you personally have to answer that, why is that so important? Somebody can just throw out an answer to me if you want.
What I wrote before was when you're teaching a child, it takes patience, wisdom, and time that turn into lifelong skills and
That's
knowledge.
very good.
Really good. It's really good.
Patience, wisdom, and it does take time and effort. Yeah,
And the result is?
a lifetime. Yeah,
It's
it's
good.
very good.
Anybody else?
So they learn integrity.
What?
So they learn integrity.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
Mhm.
They gotta have
Integrity.
something to draw on. If you don't put it in there, they won't have something to draw out of. That's good, it's good. So do you do a good job at that? I mean, self-evaluate here. Do you do a good job of investing time in your children? If not, change that behavior today, make that different for you. It's not always productive to talk to the child about the moral reason for the behavior at the exact time of the misbehavior. When you react instead of respond to a misbehavior, you are more likely to give the reason why you don't want the behavior in a conflict time. Do you find this to be true in your parenting? Is it effective in explaining your answer? Okay, are you a reactor or a responder typically? What comes the easiest for you?
Reaction.
Okay. Okay, so you've got to think through. I mean, parenting really is a processing that you're thinking today, okay, I know tomorrow, I used to think this, tomorrow morning is going to be a hassle, because tomorrow morning is always a hassle. No one has their shoes, we're always late, it's crazy, and I always lose my temper. 9 times out of 10, I'm yelling and screaming on the way to school. I remember like catching myself thinking, I go to bed that night, Lord, I'm sorry, tomorrow's gonna be better. What'd I do? Same thing the next morning, okay? I'm doing this, and I'm like, I hope the neighbor lady doesn't hear me yelling at my kids one more time, you know, until we got, like, well, if they're not ready, leave them. And I think in my head, I'm not gonna leave them, I'm not gonna.
All it takes is one time.
That's fine, whatever, I'm not gonna do that, I know I'm not, you know, it's probably the right answer, but, so I had to process ahead, what is it that sets me off every single morning? I mean, I'm not dumb, I'm an intelligent woman here, there's the same thing is gonna happen. So what I'm gonna have to process through, how can I make this work? Not being able to find your shoes. I remember thinking, Jane, he can't ever find his shoes. Okay, this is not rocket science. How about if we find our shoes before we go to bed? Oh my gosh, could that save, okay, let's find our shoes before we go to bed. That saved that, you know, but it's a process. What is it that, you know, and part of it was my own fault. I didn't have things ready for myself. So I'm rushing around while they're rushing around. Or I can't get them away from the TV. Well, I'm the mother. Let's make a new rule. No TV in the mornings. I mean, this isn't rocket science. So we went to bed that night. I'm sorry, I yell at you. One of the reasons I yell at you because you're watching TV. So from now on, we're just not going to turn that TV on. So it's a process. You make the decisions. You figure it out, and then you do it. So you can do this. All right? So what is it for you that causes you to react? And is it within your power to change? Okay, are you gonna change it?
It takes a lot of work.
It does
I am a
take
100% reactor, and it was something I had to really
Okay,
work
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Because I had it set in my mind, and it didn't help that somebody once told me, your children are a reflection of you. And so I always had it in my head, my children have to be perfect.
Right.
They have to act a certain way, they have to be a certain way, so when you're not in my perfect world, you know, that's not okay, this is not gonna work.
Right.
So then I had to stop and say, okay, this is how I would do it, but is it that big of a deal if you do it differently?
That's good.
No,
That's good.
not really, is it gonna, you know, is the world gonna come crashing down?
That's
No.
really good.
No,
That's
and
really
one of the things that
But
we
you
had
processed
to,
it.
yeah, I did, I really worked on this. The small one, a couple years ago, he was stealing. And it wasn't just candy, he would come home from the babysitters and he had like $40 DS games. And I'm like, where did you get all these? I had to think back, he went to the babysitter's house. So what we started doing is, okay, once we know where you get this stuff, you have to go back, you have to give it back, and you have to apologize. The big one caught him stealing at the store, he stuck some Rolos in his pocket. And I'm like, I had to laugh a little bit, because I'm like, really, dude, if you wanted some candy, all you had to do was ask. But I made him put it on the counter to the cashier, and I said, now you explain to her why you wanted it and why you're gonna steal it. And we told him, you know, we might be a lot of things, we're not thieves, we're not liars, that's what we're not. And we told him, you know, this is, we work hard, and we work hard for stuff that we want. You don't have the money, too bad, you save up, then you get it. But that was something that my husband and I both had to work on, is, you know, we could have, you know, easily just taken him off and given him a spanking, and, you know, don't do that, but that taught him nothing.
Right.
So we just explained, you know, this is why it's wrong. Would you want someone to steal from you? Well, no, that's mine. Okay, it's the same thing when you steal from other people.
My boys would jiggle the gum machine and try to get gum out. Get
Extra
gum out.
gum.
And they oh, I got gum. Like, where'd you get that? Oh, the machine. Like, did you pay for it? No, then you stole it. So I'd make them go up to the counter and pay
Yeah,
for it.
And those are so good, and I think, I love the reaction piece, like, do we have enough self-control to go? And if we don't, then cover it later. But, you know, that reaction piece is so big, because when we parent out of reaction, we're not shaping. we're just not shaping the heart of the child. So those are great examples. And then, you don't have to answer this, but we've talked about it a lot. I just want you to think in your own mind, number 3, what would be the benefit of discussing the misbehavior later at a non-conflict time? And again, that learning process, the brain I love that. They've done brain research that says, if you're in conflict, you can't learn. We know that's true because kids will have severe crisis and abuse in their life at a young age, and it actually stunts their emotional age to that point. They stop learning, they stop taking things in. And so we as parents have a lot of influence over that, not making things conflict. And if we wait till we're mad to face it, and we're gonna talk about this in another one, but let them do whatever they want until they've absolutely driven you crazy, and then all of a sudden we've erupted into this yelling and screaming and running around, and 10 minutes ago they didn't even know they were doing anything wrong. But you ignored the behavior until it just pushed you to the brink, and then you went off. Okay, what kind of parenting is that? It's not if you're teaching as you go, when they're doing things good, you're teaching. When you're doing something bad, they're teaching. Put your cell phone away, walk through the store with them. Talk about the green beans that come in a can and are frozen. Talk about the colors of the Skittles that you're buying, the purple package, the red package. Talk about it to them. Begin to communicate with them. If you will invest that when they're little, when they're 15, they're still talking to you.
Yeah.
When they're 17 and you sit down every single night, you have taken time to talk to them. When they're 16-year-olds, they're still talking to you. But I just think how many times that parents will come to me and say, I've got a 12-year-old, I've got a 13-year-old, and they are a hot mess. I can't do anything with them. What did you do with them when they were 5? Ignored them because I could control their behavior by giving them
Cell phone.
Yeah, not having to mess with them, but now I gotta mess with them, they're in trouble. You didn't invest the time. And so if you have little kids, invest the time now. If your kids are bigger, it's gonna be harder, but you can do it. You can still do it.
You can capture the heart of a teen.
Yeah.
You might have to apologize and really do some
And it'll
heart
take
to heart
twice
with
the
them.
work.
But it can be done. You can recapture that
And
heart.
they have to know that you've really changed. I think that point too, just like a
can't say
spouse
this.
relationship, you can say, I'm gonna start being nice now, but when they see your heart change, eventually, they don't believe you.
Mhm.
Cause like, yeah, whatever, I've heard this before. Then as it becomes your lifestyle, you really have changed, you really are different, then they want that. They want structure, they want a mom who loves them and a dad who loves them, and so you can do it.
Well, I was just thinking, it might shock them when you push your shopping cart back up. Whoa, did you see what Dad did? He pushed his shopping cart back up to the store. That's the first time I've ever seen that. Things like that are going to really start to change, because they're gonna see you're trying, you're really working on things in yourself. More is caught than taught. You maybe have given up some habits or something, and they're gonna start to see that. And yeah, it might take some time for them to believe it, but they are going to see it, and it's gonna
Well, and I think
it's gonna pay.
Even just like, how do you react when people treat you badly? Like your kids, do they already know that when the Walmart clerk is rude to you, you're gonna be rude right back and you're gonna talk bad about them all the way out? Because that's what you always do. Is it gonna shock them when they're looking at you like, why are you being so nice to them? Like,
Yeah.
they may not even say it, but what happens if you begin to change your behavior and they're like, oh, we quit being rude to people now? I mean, this has gone on like a year now, my mom hasn't been rude to them. Like, there's something going on with that woman.
Or,
But so.
Well, even from a school standpoint, you start talking nice about the teachers instead of blaming the teachers or blaming the school for the problems that are happening. Once you start blaming the teacher and your son or daughter loses respect for that teacher, it's going to be a very long year for you and that teacher and your child. I remember back in the day when if I got in trouble at school, I also got in trouble at home. Now you get in trouble at school, well, what's that school doing? It's their fault. I mean, they're bullying and all of this. I'm like, bullying wouldn't be happening probably if you weren't doing the bullying too.
Well, and one of
things
the
like
things,
that.
something I heard today that I thought was really good. A parent told me that they had a problem at school and the teacher was in the wrong. Like, they really did. They said, but you know what? My kid never knew I went and talked to that teacher. I never threw the teacher under the bus in front of him. I went to the teacher, I talked about it, and the behavior stopped with the teacher. And my kid even came home and said, Mr. So-and-so doesn't do that anymore. But he never threw the teacher under the bus. He said, I just knew I couldn't afford to do that. I didn't think that was right because my ultimate goal is they respect authority. I mean, this authority wasn't doing the right thing, but I tried to handle it without getting it, because I knew once I had done that, they were gonna, it wasn't right. And so, and because we know authority isn't always right, we're not saying that, but do we, in general, respect authority? Yes, we want our children to respect authority, so finding that happy medium. Number 4, and I really want you to think about this one. It says, list some behaviors you're working on with your child. One of the best things you can do this week is think about something that you really need to work on. Go home, practice these principles, and then start really doing them. We can tell you and tell you and tell you. You can write them down. That's all a great idea. But if you forget the minute you leave and don't practice it, it won't matter. All right? So if you can just think of 1 or 2 things that you're really working on with your child, and write those down. If you don't have your children right now, were there things that you know were struggles for you or for them?
What did you just say? Say it again.
Something that you're working on them with those struggle, I don't know.
You said struggle for them or for you?
Yeah, struggle for them or for you. What came to my mind was this, that child who just will not get ready. Like, I swear when I say we gotta hurry, they slow down.
Or like get up.
Like it is a problem, okay? So it's a problem for me more than it's a problem for them because I'm losing it. And so I can write that down as my behavior I'm working on is I need them to get going. They've got to get up in the morning. We've got to get to school. And I'm tired of fighting it. That could be a behavior that you're working on. So whatever it is, write that down. Okay, because what I want you to do is we're going to figure out how can we better parent than we're parenting now. If we are reacting and it's becoming a big problem, I'm upset, they're upset, there's no teaching going on, I'm just surviving. We're all just surviving that no one dies before they get to school, okay? Then if that's the case, then we need to go back and, okay, how can we parent that one thing this week?
My daughter likes to sleep in bed with me.
Okay,
She's 5.
okay,
So how do I get her to sleep in her own room?
okay. When did she start this behavior?
I actually started it when she was a year old.
Okay,
Because of
so-
who I was with.
Okay, so, Mom, this is your fault.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is.
Okay, so,
But I'm trying to keep them
okay,
safe.
but so now, okay, so I'm laughing, but I'm not laughing, because this is a very big problem with a lot of
It
people.
is.
This is
not
a common
at all.
problem, not an uncommon problem. Okay, so now we've got to change a behavior that we allowed for a long time. Not just sleeping with you. How many of you have a behavior like that? I've allowed it. I've just put up with it because I didn't want to mess with it. It just okay. So the longer the behavior's gone on, the harder it is going to be able to train. But you can do it. Okay. The first thing is just in non-conflict. We're going to talk about what we want and why we want it and why it's important. Okay. So in your mind, you got to think: why do I want her to sleep in her bed? Why is it important? And even lifelong differences why this is important. So it's got to be solid in your head. If you have a mentor or a spouse, you might talk to them about
On it
this.
together.
This is what we're going to do, and so we got to figure out a method of the best way to do this. In a non-conflict, explaining it and saying, okay, so starting tomorrow night, you're going to sleep in your bed. This is how it's going to work. I know it's going to be hard, and it's going to even make me a little sad, but this is what we're going to do. And we're gonna start at 8:30, we're gonna go in, we're gonna read a story, and you're gonna sleep in your bed. I'm gonna turn out the lights, maybe we're gonna get this new little
Night light
stuffed
or
animal
something.
or nightlight or whatever, this is what we're going to do. And I'm gonna go to my bed, okay? So you've explained it, it's still gonna be hard. You may wake up in the morning, you're like, where did she come from? Okay, so the next day we talk about it again.
In non-conflict.
In non-conflict, okay. There may come a point, we're gonna talk about this next week, there may come a point where there has to be consequences for choosing not to obey. But it's always the same, she knows what's expected, this is what's gonna happen.
Routine.
And you've done this 4 years, it may take 4 months to do it, that's okay,
You
it's
can do
worth it.
It's worth it.
So I think that, again, you can go into non-conflict, talk about it, set in your mind why you want that behavior to change and why it's important. If you don't know, then you're not really gonna be able to sew it into them. So everybody thought of something, why is it important, why are you changing it? Explain it in non-conflict, this is what we're gonna do, and change it.
I know, number
She had a
5.
question.
Oh. Okay.
My daughter, she doesn't like checking her blood and dosing herself. We've had lengthy conversations, non-conflict time. If you don't check your blood and dose yourself, this is what's gonna happen. And she's even had symptoms where she really doesn't feel good. And I'm like, okay, what did you not do? And she knows it.
Right.
But she still continues to do it.
And that in itself is good too, because just because we explain to them why, they may or may not care or get it. But we're still the parent and we still do it the same. If there is maturity issues that will come, well, they'll get it. But we still have to be the enforcer. We have to be consistent. That's why you need to be so set what's important and what you need to do. So you can continue to enforce that, because we know that's true. We all want to do what we want to do when we want to do it. Is there anybody like that? It's not like that in this room? I want to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, and how I want to do it, except for Catherine, everybody else, And so, but with maturity, some of that will come. But we're clear on it, we're consistent on it. Next week, we're gonna talk a lot about structure and
Yeah,
consistency.
structure
So,
and teaching.
okay, we're gonna say.
So I was just gonna say on number 5, I know we're running out of time. Give examples of teachable moments. We also call these windows of opportunity. And while these windows are open, you really need to take advantage of them, because they do tend to close when they get a little older. Those opportunities. Now, if you've put them in place when they were young, you can still have them, but be looking for these teachable moment times or these windows of opportunity in your children. You got to be intentional about those.
Do they like being with you now? Are they like driving you crazy, asking so many questions? Praise God for that, because
Yeah.
that will end. You've got a window. Take the time now where they're with you all the time. They want to be with you. I just remember like saying to my daughter, just move over, give me some space. I mean, she just loved to be where I was and be with me all the time. And I look back now and I think, oh man, I wouldn't give her that moment to be back. And even when she turned 15 or 16, she's pretty much done with me then. She didn't care. She didn't want to hang out with me anymore. I thought, but you want to hold them close so you develop that relationship when they're young so it continues.
But when she's 24, she still calls and she does want that
that's
again.
right. It's
so.
a brief moment, but yeah, she's good now. So those are good. And
Pre-teaching,
then
number
pre-teaching,
6.
think of settings of your child. Again, what are some times or places that consistently are hard? That you go places and that there's gonna be some disruption or rude behavior. When we get to those places, we talk them through. This is what's gonna happen when we get there, so be sure you're doing
And
that.
I'd also want to just say, work on maybe 1 or 2
Yeah,
things
that's good.
only.
That's really
You might
good.
have, I got a list of 10.
Right.
No, only work
Yeah,
on 1 or 2.
that's really good.
Because you're going to overwhelm yourself. Become successful in those 1 or 2. Then take on another 1 or 2.
Ignore some behaviors
Ignore.
this week and choose 1. That's a
Yeah.
really good piece
Very
of
good.
advice. Good job. I'll buy you flowers for that
Thank
one.
you.
I always tell her, put yourself in that person's shoes, how you're talking to her.
Right.
How would you feel if she was talking to you that way? You don't think that.
And that God would give you opportunities, because sometimes those things like that'll come up.
Yeah.
I mean, like the little boy stealing. I mean, when somebody takes something from him, he's appalled. Those are great teachable moments. I know how you feel. How do you think that man that you stole the Rolos from felt? I mean, the same or whatever. So I think those are you can use, that God, give me some quick teaching
Quick wisdom.
opportunities
Quick wisdom.
to be able to do that, yeah.
Well, even seeing people treat each other a certain way in public, you can say.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, there's a lot of great
Talk
examples.
about how they were treating each other.
Yeah. A lot of great examples out there.
Don't be
teachable
like
moment
them.
that we had, I took the big one time to Black Friday shopping, and she decided to go and get the game for her dad, and I was like, all right, you're old enough, I'll let you do your thing. And as she's walking away, I said, now make sure you say excuse me and use your manners. And she did and everything, and I thought, I don't think I said that loud enough in here, but I thought, while I'm teaching
Pre-teaching,
the
there
big
you go.
one some manners, let's maybe remind some of the adults to use our manners.
Yeah.
All right, personal reflection, and you can talk about these amongst yourself as well. It's important for you and your spouse to be in agreement on parenting issues. What are some things you can visit about in your relationship time with your spouse or mentor, single parent? I can't emphasize this enough. Even if you don't totally agree with your spouse, to be on opposite sides, it's so counterproductive in your parenting. Figure out how to be together. That's why we encourage people, take the parenting class together, do the same. Where our kids used to laugh, I know, you're on the side, we're on the side. I'm like, yeah, that's right, and we are on the same side.
We're on the same side.
You're not gonna, and Phil would say, did you already ask your mom this question? What did she say? Then whatever she said, I'm agreeing with, and vice versa. And so, get an agreement. Those relationship times are big times to get an agreement. Those times you're talking on the phone, you can start talking about parenting issues. We learned this in parenting. What do you think? How should we handle this? Or what are we going to do when? So that's really good.
Remember, you guys can go home and blame us. Hey, we're trying these new
Yeah,
things.
that's another
We're
good
going to
one.
blame these
Yeah.
guys, these people called the Heekes.
Some of your kids know us. You're
Yeah.
like, Mr. and Mrs. Heeke, they're making us do this. It's for a grade in our class. All right. Are you praying that God will give you wisdom and insight to know when your child's heart is ready to receive teaching about behavior? This is big. God will give you insight. He knows when their heart is open and ready. And he will, I've seen that happen. That's an incredible thing to be seeing that God says, okay, this is the time. Now's a good time to do this. And then for your homework this week on page 24, be doing your homework. You're going to evaluate yourself. Did you find yourself this week telling your child to stop doing something or saying no and not giving the biblical moral reason why behind a non-conflict or teachable moment? Every time you come to parenting, you're more aware this week. I say no all the time. Stop it. No, because I said so. Stop it. No, because I said so. Could you just stop it now? I mean, do you just say that over and over, and they never have a clue? Why are you laughing? Because I was so good at that. So I think you all, every lesson like makes you more aware. Oh, I don't want to do that. All right. Number 2, are you characterized as a parent by reacting to your child or calmly responding? Okay. Do you react or do you respond? Number 3, give an example of some ways you deposited into your child's moral bank this week. So we're going to ask next week, how did you deposit? How are you going to deposit? Teachable moments, giving the moral reason why, teaching in non-conflict, okay? Put that in there. Mick and Sandy, you can deposit it in each other. You can give her the moral reason why she needs to stop doing that, or vice versa.
She can do it to you. Why you should be wearing your seatbelt.
You're the one that got a ticket.
That's
for
right.
having a seatbelt on, so.
Oh man, you just threw him under the bus.
That was a bit-
I wasn't gonna bring that up. I do dumb stuff.
It worked for me though. I missed the toll booth this week,
Oh.
driving up from Kansas City. Like I went the K-tag way after I got my ticket. And so I was like, I was thinking all the time, that's gonna come in the mail and I'm gonna intercept it and pay for it. This is like $20 and it would have cost me like $3. I'm gonna intercept it, I'm gonna pay it before Phil sees it. Cause it was dumb, I felt so dumb. I'm like, how dumb is that? And so sure enough, I get home and it's open. And I'm like,
What is this?
I said, man, I started to say that and he
There's
goes,
a picture of our car.
but Phil's like, it didn't cost near as much as that seatbelt ticket I got. And I'm like, yes, that's right.
I'm laughing because during this is that all the time. We're always
I
getting
swear
this
they
in
do
the
it on
mail.
purpose.
They're
It's harder to go with the paid side than the tag side, so watch yourself.
Especially since they moved it.
Yeah. All right, and then you're gonna come back next week and give an example of a teachable and a pre-teachable moment you did with your child, okay? We're checking your homework next week. Okay, and in what specific ways are you praying for God to give you wisdom in your parenting?
All right.
What's
What's the difference on that,
What?
on the teachable and pre-teachable?
They can be both, but
Yeah.
a pre-teach is when you specifically
Like
pre-teach
only
something
getting
that's
ready to
going
go
to
do
happen.
something.
You know, like going to Walmart, hey, this is how we're going to. But teachable moment, you can do that also in a teachable moment. Oh, we had a problem yesterday at Walmart, right before you go to bed. Hey, what can we do to make that better? And in a way, it's pre-teaching, but yet it's a teachable moment. So, good question. Thanks for asking that. Well, let's pray. Father, we thank you again that we can learn from you, and you've given us these beautiful children again, Lord, that we want them to grow up and to have a great life and do the things you intend them to do. But Lord, we know that we are the ones that you've given them to. Give us wisdom and knowledge, quick wisdom, quick knowledge in parenting, and help us to do these teachable moments and instill in them godly ways and morals that you have, Lord, and the biblical truths that we need to give to them. And Lord, we just give you the glory and honor and praise. Set up people so that they find favor with their teachers and with others, Lord, other people that can pour into them too. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hey, thanks for coming out. Such a cold night. Grab a cup of coffee on your way out.
Yeah, there's
Like-
coffee over there. I think there's not a whole lot.